Hi guys, to part 4 of the ultimate Loadbox comparison. Today we will check out the line out of the Suhr reactive IR Loadbox. I'm going to use the output check, which is labeled unfiltered, that's this one. Because in the final video of the series we will compare all load boxes, and for this it's very important to use the same IRs. And because we want to be very accurate, we will also use the same IR loader, which is my XFX3. In this video we will reamp some guitar tracks, check the latency and ground hum sensitivity of the device, and last but not least we take a look at the overall response curve. Please keep in mind, for this and all coming sound tests, the load boxes are used in silent mode, means without a cabinet connected. None of the load boxes is sponsored, each one has been purchased with my own money. I'm not getting paid for making these videos, so I'm absolutely unbiased and not influenced by any company. The Suhr Loadbox comes along with a high cut switch on the front panel. That's this one. So I will record one track for each setting, means 6 tracks total. Okay, now let's start to reamp the recorded DI tracks of the unprocessed guitar signal, so we can compare the results without any changes in my playing later. For the clean, mid-gain and high-gain sounds, different IRs will be used. Let's start with a clean sound through my König amp. The first track is without the high cut and the second track with the high cut switch engaged. For the mid-gain sound, I'm using my Friedman BE100 Deluxe amp. For the high-gain sound, I will use my EVH 5150 Stealth Edition amp. You may have noticed some differences in the high frequencies. To see what's really going on, let's compare my already recorded white noise tracks by using the EQ plugin. You can clearly see the high cut. It starts at around 2 kHz with a max gain loss of around -3 dB. The difference between the recorded guitar tracks is not big but audible. For future recordings I prefer not to engage the high cut switch. It's similar to cutting hair. what's gone is lost. So for recordings, it's usually better to make frequency corrections directly in the DAW. Now let's continue with the latency check. And as you can see here, the latency is around 0.3 milliseconds, which is equal to the round-trip latency. This means that there's no ADDA converter between the amp in and the line out of the device. So the signal processing of the line out is completely analog. That's great. Let's compare this to the IR line out, and as you can see here, the latency goes up to 1.9 milliseconds. By subtracting the round-trip latency, we have a total latency of around 1.6 milliseconds, which is a pretty good value. Now let's take a look at the overall response curve. For this, we compare the line out of the Loadbox with the white noise input signal of the amp, which was fed into the power amp via the effects return loop. For more details, please watch episode 1. As you can see, a low cut starts at 110 Hz. Then there's a big dent from 120 to 4 kHz of around -5 dB and kind of a high shelf starting at 4 kHz. As already mentioned in the last video, the response curve represents the Loadbox and the power tube amp. For more details, please watch part 3 of this video series. Now let's check the ground hum sensitivity. As you can see in the diagram, I'm using two DI boxes, one straight after the output of the audio interface and another after the line out of the Loadbox. For the test, I'm using the high gain channel of my EVH amp, so we can clearly hear a difference. We will do 4 tests, first with both DI boxes engaged in the signal chain, next without the second DI box, then without any DI box, and finally without the first DI box. As you could hear, the first 2 settings work perfect. In the third configuration, the ground hum was so massive that it leads to a feedback because of the high gain hiss of the amp. In the first configuration, you can also hear a massive ground hum. Another thing I've noticed is that the Loadbox has an internal fan. It turns on automatically as soon as the input signal is present and turns off when the input signal stops. The higher the amp power, the higher the fan speed. In the video you can hear the fan as well as the guitar sound. Both comes direct from the Loadbox, monitors are muted. The sound is mainly generated by the internal electrical components of the Loadbox, primarily coils. And as an addendum to the last video, let's also check the aux box. As you could hear, the aux box has no fan. However, some lower sound is hearable too. That's it for today. Thanks for watching and see you soon in the next episode when we inspect the amp central from Red 7. And don't forget, I'm here to bring you all the facts you are looking for.